Hello everyone, Nadezhda here, and today I'm going to teach you all about the parts in Revit. Parts are usually used for creating some sort of the layers in our walls, and we usually use them to create panels in the exterior and interior walls. Let's start by adding some regular wall to our project. I will go to the wall tool, and for now I will choose one wall with the layers. It is very important to use wall with the layers because it will create the separate layers from our built-in layers in the wall tool. So I will create one wall and I will choose basically any of these existing ones. You can also create your own wall, it doesn't matter. For now, I will just choose the generic one from these wall families. Once I've picked it, I will just model it. It doesn't matter for now what is its height and everything, but what is important is to change the detail level to be fine, because otherwise you will not be able to see those layers in your wall. And now that I have created this wall, I will go to default 3D view because that way I can explain it easier. I will also change the detail level here to fine, so we will be able to see all of these layers. I click on my wall and I click on create parts. Now that we have done that, we can actually see how it looks. Now we have all of these parts, and basically the main feature of these parts is that we can separate them into different, parts. So we click on one part and we can now go to the option that says divide parts. And this enables us to basically create the separate panels into this one area of the wall. So I can go to edit sketch option, and in this step I can either go to some elevation and do this part from the elevation, but I'm doing it from 3D just so I can explain to you how we can do this in the 3D view, because that is basically the trickier part of these parts. First, what I have to do in order to continue is to set my work plane. So I go to this option, to this triangle, and I click on a pick plane option. This way I can pick plane which I will be drafting in. And I will choose this last layer, its surface, and I will click on it. And now we can see that these blue hidden lines have changed. The best thing to do now is to click on this rectangle tool so we can create the boundaries of this wall. I will just use these snaps and I will create this rectangle of the surface. If I haven't modeled the boundaries of the wall, what would happen would be that once I create all of my parts, the sketch would be invalid because I don't have the boundaries. So this part is very important to remember, is you always have to create the boundaries of the wall which you are creating the parts in. I always note this because a lot of people forget this and then they have trouble later on. So this is always the most important first part. Once I have created the boundaries, what I do is I go to the line tool or pretty much any of these drafting tools and just create my parts. I will now separate it into some random parts. Of course, you can separate them in any way you want. I will just do it randomly because I'm doing it from 3D. So I'm not going to do it by any precision. But if you do want more precision, you can go to some elevation view, and that way you can also use these dimension tools and copy in some precise manner and everything. But I will just do it this way. I will also add some horizontal parts so everything will look more dynamic. And I will also add some circles just so it can be more interesting. Just a couple of them, nothing too complex. And this is what I want this wall to look like. And now that I have drafted this, I can just click finish. And what I can see from this is that this line it hasn't gone fully to the top of my wall, and the reason for it usually is the same, and that is the fact that we have small gap here. So I would just extend it, and now when I click OK, I have all of these separate parts in one wall. What's also very useful now is this gap option. Basically, if I were to finish it right now, we would have separate parts, but they don't have any gap between them. And if we want to create the gap, we can go back one step. And now that we have gone back, I can just insert some number for gap. Let's say, for example, 2 millimeters. And now when we zoom in, we see that our parts have small gap in between them. So this is actually also a very useful option that you should keep in mind, because very often in these parts you will want to create some gaps if you want to have like very precise, very detailed drawings. Now that we have created our parts, we can now see that we can separate each of these parts. We can select them independently, and all of them are essentially the different elements. And what I can do now is I can go to the textured view. And now I can see that all my parts are basically the same material, and this is to me the most useful tool of parts, and that is the fact that you can assign them the different material. Once I select them, I can see this option material by original, and that basically means that I keep the material of the wall, of the original wall, and I can actually change that. I can turn it off, and now I can choose the different material for my wall. Instead of gypsum wall board, I will just choose some, let's say, some wood material, just so it can look very different. And once I've done that, I click OK. Once I deselect it, I can see now that this part has completely different material. And essentially you can do this for all the parts. You can just have as many of the different materials you want in this wall. And it's a very good tool, because very often we will create the different facades, different materials, different elements, so we will want to use this parts option. Another useful tool you can use is also exclude parts option. Once I select the part, I can click exclude parts, and once I zoom in, I can see that this part is not visible anymore. Basically, with this option we have hidden this part. If you want to retrieve it back, you can simply select it, and you can use this restore excluded part option. That way it can come back. It is also useful because very often when modeling the facades, you will want to maybe sometimes have some panel more or some panel less, and you can use this option for that. It is also very useful because you can use phasing. Essentially, you can apply different phasing to the different options. Another thing about parts that I want you to keep in mind is that how they show in plans and section. I will go to the L1 plan, and I can see that essentially our parts don't exist here. Once we zoom in, we see that there is no separation. We can only see those lines that are basically the pattern of this wall layer. And if you want to show the parts in the floor plans, what you can do is you can go to visibility graphic options, and you can find the parts option. By default, it is always turned off, so if you want to show these parts, you will always have to go to visibility graphics or your template and turn it off or on. I can click OK, and now I can see that all of my parts are visible, including those gaps. What is also important is that you can also select each of these layers independently, and you can apply it either comments, marks, etc. Basically, this is very useful because it enables you to tag these layers independently, and it provides you a lot more options for it. If you have changed your mind, in the end what you can do is you can select any of these parts and you can go to Edit Division option. Once you do that, you can go back to Edit Sketch and you can basically change any of these parts. You can delete any of these options. Let's say I delete a couple of these and click OK in the end. This will easily make modification to your parts. If you have, however, changed your mind about these parts, you can essentially select any of these parts and just click delete. Let's say I will select this wall layer, some random wall layer, and I will click delete. You will get this error that says edit to the model will cause some parts to be deleted, and you can simply click delete elements. What this will do is it will turn your walls with parts to some regular wall. And this is all about parts. If you like my tutorials, please like and subscribe. I post them every couple of days. And if you like learning with me, check out my course in the description below. See you in the next tutorial. Bye! If you enjoy learning with us, take a look at our architectural course through the link below. With 20 hours of structured video lessons, it's designed to help beginners master Revit step by step. To support your progress, we've included assignments with each lesson, plus the opportunity to ask questions and receive guidance directly from the instructor whenever you need it. This way, you're not just watching tutorials, you're actively learning, practicing, and improving with guidance every step of the way. Thank you for watching.